Hi, thank you for joining me today for our Ask the Candidate series. Today I have with me the Honourable Dugald Saunders, who's member for the Dubbo electorate, member of the Legislative Assembly, Minister for Agriculture, Minister for Western New South Wales, and member of the Nationals. Thank you so much for joining me, Dugald.
G'day, Laura. Good to talk to you.
And first up, can you please describe your vision for the future of the electoral district of Dubbo?
Yeah, look, absolutely. I think the role, I guess, I see of government, and certainly the role that the government I've been part of for the past 4 years, is to enable opportunities for community groups, for individual residents, for businesses of all kinds, to make sure that we are actually delivering the things that a community needs to keep going forward. And that involves planning. So importantly for me is a plan around health and education. It's a plan around investing for the future of our young people. And that would include things like our Kids Future Fund, which we announced recently, where at the age of 18, you can have up to $28,000 in the bank for education or for housing. It's revolutionary ideas. It's forward thinking. It's forward planning. It's also a focus on a plan about roads, a $19.4 billion pipeline for roads and for rail. And also, I guess, enabling the needs of the community. So better access to healthcare in different ways, housing for healthcare workers and other key workers. And again, we've rolled out another $100 million for healthcare worker housing just in the last couple of days. So the focus for me is on enabling things, making sure that we can achieve everything we need to achieve, because I know, and all regional members know, that regional New South Wales is absolutely the engine room of the state, and we need to keep making sure that can continue to be the case.
Thank you for sharing. And secondly, what key housing issues does your policy specifically address?
Look, we've had a real focus on housing. I mentioned just then briefly the idea around some key worker housing, specifically for health. We've now got $100 million on the table. It includes housing opportunities in the Central West and right across the Western District, including in my electorate at Mudgee, with up to 6 brand new accommodation units built on hospital grounds to replace what were the old, fairly decrepit ones. So we want to make sure that housing is there, that we're attracting people to be involved in nursing or doctors or allied health, for example, that they can live close to where they work. Housing is a challenge, we know that. So the Housing Task Force we set up has identified some of those key opportunities. One of them is key worker housing. So police, teachers, doctors, nurses, we're focusing on health right now, but there's a whole plan around teacher housing and also police housing for the future. We're also, though, very much investing in, I guess, the enabling things that I talked about earlier to make sure that private investment can happen as well. And only around 3 or 4 weeks ago, we announced $9.5 million towards Dubbo Regional Council for an enabling road in the northwest precinct of Dubbo, the River Street West Collector Road, to enable up to 6,000 blocks to be developed there. So we're talking about, maybe a population there of between 10 and 15,000 people over time on those 6,000 blocks, depending on the mix of housing. And then we've got our social and affordable housing plan, which it's over $1 billion in that plan. And for regions like ours, it's an investment in brand new units, social housing units, to replace old sort of crumbling homes. We're in the process of doing another one of those now on Miles Street. We've done Short Street, Jubilee Street. We are on target for housing. More to do, but we'll keep focusing on it.
Thank you for explaining all that. And in regards to the Biodiversity Conservation Act 2016, when we look around, we can see that it is adversely affecting regional development disproportionately. How do you plan to bring change around that?
Yeah, look, I think that the biodiversity offset scheme specifically has probably caused a bit of angst for people in the past. I think there's been a real focus on that. There's been a review of that. The Department of Environment is actually doing its own review right now around how that needs to be looked at going forward. We've had a lot of interest in our region, and in fact, the review committee has been through this area a number of times. What I want to see is a change in the way that calculator works. We know it's disproportionately disadvantaging some regional areas, because we know that Mossman is different to Murrum-Bateman, is different to Burke, is different to Walgett. So we need to have a way of actually working out these offset schemes in a far more measured way that reflects the area that it's being applied to. I think most people agree that there does need to be some sort of a scheme there. It just needs to work better, and I'm absolutely committed to making sure it does.
Thank you for explaining. And what professional experience and history qualifies you to hold a paid position of state influence?
Look, I've been, I guess, the past 4 years, I've been in the
Yes.
role. I'm hoping that shows some sort of capacity. I've been lucky enough to be the member for Dubbo since 2019, Minister for Agriculture, Minister for Western New South Wales since December of 2021. And I love what I do. Previous to that, I had a long career in the media. And part of the role I've had there, I guess, was around solutions to problems. Particularly the last 10 years in this area, was a lot of talkback radio and interviews around things that people were facing and having challenges with, and how best to find solutions to that. And that certainly helped me in the role that I currently have. But I've also grown up on a farm. I've worked about 20 different jobs in my life, from retail to waterproofing, hanging off the side of buildings, driving trucks. So I think all of that actually adds to the ability to represent a whole range of people across the community.
Thank you. And what specific benchmarks will you use to determine that your time in office was successful?
Yeah, look, politics and probably the role I have is quite different to most other roles that most people think of. So it's not quite the same as having a KPI in business, or you might be having a target for staff or a target for growth. I think from my perspective, there's one very, very clear measurement, and that is the election, which is coming up.
Yes.
So you hope that you're doing enough to show people why you deserve to be their representative again. But along the way, you are constantly measuring what you're doing based on the feedback you get from people. And I talk to literally probably 100 people almost every single day, and I get feedback on literally everything I've done during that day, the last week, and the week before. So it is a constant flow of information, whether it's through social media, phone calls, face-to-face. My door is always open, and I've said that from the start. It always will be. I welcome feedback. You can't always fix every single thing in people's lives, but I think being able to actually hear from people is the most important way to reflect what you're actually doing and how you're influencing results for the community.
Thank you. And how will you respond when there's an issue that causes a conflict between your personal values and your party's policy?
It's an interesting one, and I think people have the perception that if you're part of a political party, like I am with the Nationals, you are bound by everything that happens at a party perspective. I mean, that isn't the case. I'm really proud of being part of the Nationals, but I also have a very individual voice, and we've been through some fairly torrid times in the past 4 years. My first term has had everything possibly you can have in it. And so there's been a lot of challenges from a party perspective and a personal perspective, but all along the way, every single individual in our party room has absolutely the right to speak their mind and do their own, do what they need to do. I've certainly done that. I always have the opportunity and the backing to do that. And I think that's important for people to know.
Thank you. And finally, as our incumbent member, politics and business are similar in the sense that there's always room to improve and serve people better. So if you are re-elected, what do you plan to do differently in the way you serve?
That's a good question. I think I'm hoping people have felt like they've been represented really well for the past 4 years. I've certainly given everything I have during that time, and there was a particularly tough time during COVID, but I feel like I've literally put my life and my full effort into doing everything. Interestingly, I think probably what I would do differently, which may be a benefit for everyone, is try and take some more time for myself and my family. It is a very all-consuming role. I do want to be able to smell the roses a little bit at the same time, and that hasn't really been able to occur in the past 4 years given everything that's happened. But I think it is important to be able to keep contact with your family, your friends, spending time doing some of the things you enjoy doing to keep the energy for what you want to do for the community. So that's one thing I'm hoping to be able to do. I certainly won't be putting any less effort into the role I have, but I do think it's important to be able to try and rebalance life a little bit. And I'm hoping I'll have that opportunity if given the chance to represent again.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for your time today with us, Dugald. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Good to talk to you.
You too.